Welcome everyone to our kickoff meeting for the Utah CNC Machinist Tech Apprenticeship. We're hoping that today is informative. We're getting started just a little bit late. We've got a lot of material to cover, so please know that we are hopefully put a lot of time and effort into this and want to be able to be super informative and be able to answer some questions and work together to improve the industry and the trade that we're all involved in. Just a quick couple of things. Thanks to Sandy and the Granite School District for hosting us today. This is a great place to meet. We appreciate their hospitality. Just for information, the restrooms are just right around the corner here and just almost behind us. So a little history. Back in 2009, I was approached by a couple people from the National Tooling and Machining Association, and I said, so why would I want to be involved in this? And they says that you can do things as a collective group that are much more difficult to do on your own. And when they brought up workforce, that's when my antenna went up and I became interested in what they had to say. Through the years, as a collective group of employers, we've been able to identify, issues, and it seems that the workforce side of things has always been there. But I don't know that we've ever been in as an industry that we're in right now. I don't know about you, but as an employer, and I'm Matt Wardle from JD Machine, also involved with the NTMA. But I've never seen a situation like we have right now with the low state unemployment and the workforce shortage, plus the lack of skilled people moving into our industry when things are really busy. This very quickly became a burning platform. Several years ago, the local chapter of the MTMA had an initiative called Machine Utah, and that was good. For those that were involved, we have quite a few team members that came as a result of that, but there were some challenges, resources. So as this process came together, this is almost the next phase, and we are super excited about it. This began in December of 21. Brad Robeson is on the stand here. He was talking with Martin Moore and expressed a desire to get some things going with Workforce Initiative. We're grateful to Marty for all of his efforts. Marty works with the Utah Manufacturers Association, and from there, a group was formed, a coalition. Megan Ware is with the UMA. She's done this very thing at Stadler Rail. We're going to see her on video. We excuse her. She's in Europe. From there, Talent Ready came on board. Talent Ready Utah is under the Utah System of Higher Education. They've been absolutely amazing. Peter Reed will speak to us. Dick Hockett is overall of Talent Ready, and Rochelle Ackley has also been our glue. Melissa Stark is on the show. She'll be speaking to us today. She's with Apprenticeship Utah, and the rest of the group was TJ Marshall from Parker has been involved in this, and we've been just working on this for, since December of 01. The first cohort, and this is just to keep in mind, everything we're talking about here today, we're doing a pilot right now with 4 employers, but the real begin that as you're thinking of this is something you want to be involved with will be in August of this year with those kids that are starting school in August. So here is our agenda, and I'll just announce it and people will just go from there, and I'll get out of the way here. But Melissa will first talk to us about how apprenticeships work. Marty and Rochelle will talk about where the pipeline of people come from. Peter will talk about the classroom component for the apprentices. Megan will have a video from her on the administration. We then have Montez King from NIMS, National Institute of Metalworking Standards. He's flown in for this and is an expert on in-house training. And then Brad will cover the employer's role. We really want to be efficient with questions, and we want to be respectful of your time. We're trying to get through a ton of information, take notes, but if you wouldn't mind, pull out your phone and copy this or link into Slido. This is a deal that we've got going, and all of your questions, just throw them out as they come through the day here. Hopefully 2 hours. We want to finish right around 11 o'clock. We will get those questions, and then at the end, we'll hit those that we can, and everything else will be followed up with an email with the answers to the questions that are asked. So with that, we'll turn the time over to Melissa.
Thank you, Matt. I was glad that you went through the history because this has been a long time coming, and just really excited to be here today and see us take this to the next level. That's what these partnerships are all about, is what are we doing to help support industry growth, what the needs are, and what we need to do to help support you. The most important thing that I think we need to do is establish kind of what apprenticeships are. It's been a buzzword for such a long time that it gets used interchangeably quite a bit with internships. So we felt that it was really important to make sure that this group was on the same page and really understands what an apprenticeship is. Really, an apprenticeship is industry driven, it's high quality, it provides on-the-job learning that is directly related to the occupation that you hired someone for. So this is a little bit different than an internship. In an internship, it's usually you have someone for a specified period of time, usually short term. We see a lot of them be about 12 weeks, usually about 12 weeks. Some of them we've seen go up to 6 months, but there is no expectation that you're going to hire that individual. They're there just for a short period of time. What they're doing may be directly related to their field of study or the program that they're in. Most oftentimes the employer is, but a lot of times what they're doing isn't. Sometimes we get an intern and we don't necessarily put them in a position that we're looking to hire for. They hope to make a good impression. You hope that you like them. They hope that they will be directed to apply for an open job, but it's not guaranteed. That is a very key difference from an internship and an apprenticeship. An apprenticeship, you actually hire the person. You hire them first for a specific job, and then you help them with the training that they're going to need to perform that job effectively. So in my mind, this is the only way that I know that someone is guaranteed to work in their field of study. We know that about 27% of individuals that go to a four-year institution never work in their field of study. And so this is one way that someone can do that. And the beauty about this apprenticeship is that you get to help train them to meet your specific needs. We have a level of expectation from our education partners, right? There's many of you that are on advisory boards, you help develop the curriculum, and you have expectations that when they come to you, they're going to be ready to work. But we often hear that they're not always ready to do the job the way you want them to do the job. There's a couple things at play. One, the cross-foundational skills are definitely what's taught in the education realm. And the one thing that's important is that this also has to be cost-effective for them. So it's really hard for them to train to Paramount's needs, to Machine Clean's needs, to JD Machine's needs, on the nuances that are different between those companies. And those are things that can be added to your apprenticeship and have some of those specific things that you need that can be taught on the job. Long gone are the days that we can point to an educator and say, you're not giving me what I need. Because if you're not involved in the process, then they can't give you what they need, and you're not speaking up. I think what's really important here is that our industry partners understand that it's time to be, and we've gotten some of them that have been very great at it for a really long time, to become co-producers of talent rather than just consumers of talent. And so that's what we're talking about here. With an apprenticeship, you hire someone, they get the training that's directly related to the job. The expectation is that they're going to remain with your company after they complete their apprenticeship because you've hired them. They're an employee just like any other employee. And then they get incremental raise increases based off of the competencies or that they build to show how effective and productive that they're getting. And again, this is something that's going to be specific to each company. There's not a specific set amount or standard that you need to follow. Like, this is following what you guys need and what you have the ability to do. And then they receive an industry recognized credential. If there are some that's very specific to the position, those are embedded as part of the curriculum. They receive a certificate of completion And knowing that if they went to the tech school or the community college or university that you're partnered with, they receive that certificate, but they also get a national credential. They'll get a national credential from the U.S. Department of Labor, which Sandy from Granite School District likes to call a work degree, that is portable across the United States, and also we have some reciprocal agreements internationally. So when someone says, hey, I participated in this program, or I know how to do this job, they know that the program was vetted, that there was some rigor to the academics, and that really the standards that were set, the skills that were taught were identified by industry. And so they know that you meet those qualifications. We've had some interesting things that have happened within the state just recently for individuals that have participated in non-registered programs that have moved to another state, and they try to get a license, and they ask them to see their Department of Labor certificate showing that they went through an apprenticeship. And then they didn't. They went through one that was non-registered. And so now they're having to have the burden on them to prove that they have those competencies. So, go back and show their licensure from Utah or the program that they attended from education, and to show that it meets what they would expect in that state. So being involved at this level is an advantage to you in preparing those skilled workers that you need. But why else is that important? Utah has a 2.2% unemployment rate. Where are we getting people? Even if we have more children, which Utah is has one of the youngest populations in the nation, it's going to be some time before they are out your door to apply for a job. So this is why this initiative is really important to us, because we're able to tap into a workforce that you may not have been able to tap into previously. Those that participate in a registered apprenticeship program can be 16 years or older, and we'll get to that point in a minute, but I wanted you to take a look here at the return on investment that you can receive as an apprenticeship partner. You have that skilled workforce, you've helped develop them to meet your needs. Those that participate in a registered apprenticeship program, studies have shown that 92% of them are retained with your company upon completion of their program and continue working for you. One thing that we find is when you invest in people, they will invest in you. We've also heard anecdotally, and you'll hear Megan talk about this, that in some realms, some individuals that companies have hired and trained through their apprenticeship program actually become more productive and in a more efficient manner than individuals that they hire off the street a little more quickly. So those are some exciting things that we've heard about. There was also a study done by Nicholas Wyman, the CEO of Institute for Workplace Skills and Innovation, and it stated that employers earn a 36% return on their investment for apprenticeship training, and that's far higher than the 10% among S&P 500 firms. So really, and another study shows that you can gain $1.50 in increased productivity, reduced waste, and greater frontline innovation for every dollar spent. So there is definitely a return on investment for you participating and having apprentices in your program. One of the very, very key things to a successful apprentice is having the mentorship. Mentorship drives everything. It's a very valuable component of apprenticeship, and it really is going to make the difference to be able to transfer the knowledge from your seasoned workers or experienced workers to apprentices, so that they then can be productive, and then a lot of times they in the future then become those mentors and transferring the knowledge that they receive. And they know what worked for them, so they're very valuable to other apprentices, where they can say, you know what, this is what I learned, or this was hard for me, and this is something that you should think about. And so that's something that we want to make sure is very key that we talk about. Again, it's something that can be a little bit different than having an intern. Sometimes that happens, sometimes it doesn't. For simplicity purposes, some of you have heard me say this before, but I like to call an internship the try before you buy model. It's very effective, it's very valuable, just like any other program, and it has its place along the work-based learning continuum. But an apprenticeship is a train to retain. You're training them because you want to keep them within your organization. We talked about youth employment. One of the things that we encounter a lot is I cannot hire someone under the 18 to work on the shop floor. Well, according to the Department of Labor, you can. So if someone participates in a registered apprenticeship program, or they have a student learner agreement that is directly tied to their educational program, so in high school, it's going to be directly tied to them receiving high school credit and part of maybe a CTE pathway, when that happens, someone can start working at the age of 16. So I challenge you that if it's something that you've had a conversation with your insurance companies about previously, maybe it's time to revisit those conversations. For a long time, the answer was just no. Sometimes we just didn't know enough about the law to ask the right questions, and we have a resource here for you today. And so I have it up front, we'll pass it around to you. It really it's directly from the Department of Labor. It's the FLSA fact sheet for youth employment. And we'll talk about the hazardous occupations. There are 17, but of those 17 hazardous occupations, there are 7 that you can hire a youth in on a limited scale or for specific things. So it's not to say they can come in and do everything, but it is acknowledgeable enough to know that they know that the industry has changed from what it was before. And so there's definitely some more openness to be able to have those conversations. Along with that, I do have contact information, and we may set up another meeting to where you guys can ask your questions to them directly, or you can meet with them one-on-one. To an individual that's with the Department of Labor but here in Utah that is an outreach specialist for employers to work through these issues with. So we can set that up, or we can provide you with the contact information so that you can start engaging in those conversations. His whole job is to help employers have successful or the support and the policies in place to help them with this type of program. They want you to be able to be successful at it, not to have issues down the road when someone comes in and audits. Their goal, if you will, is not to be the aha, I caught ya. It's what do you have in place that's going to help support you now, and what do you need to fix so that you're not going to find yourself in trouble. Their number one objective is safety of employees. But also making sure that they're supporting you. And how do they do that? The one thing that he's very, very adamant to make sure people know is that he is not connected with the auditing group. He is not connected with OSHA. He does not share any information with them at all. He is your education specialist to make sure that you set these programs up in an appropriate way so that, again, you just don't have that aha, we caught you. That's definitely not their goal. Some of the things that we are doing to, excuse me, help you with is there are times when a school district can cover workers' comp and liability. Those are usually, and in the past have mostly been in unpaid internships. Again, a very valuable key of the work-based learning component. But there are also times that we got clarification, I guess I should say, that they can cover workers' comp and liability for also paid internships. What we're working on is trying to get additional support for apprenticeships. That is in the works. The one thing that I will say is that you as an employer will always have the responsibility to cover workers' comp and liability on your employees. They would be your employee, so this is one of your responsibilities. But as a state and a working group and a school district, we're trying to look at how we leverage resources to help you with some of those things. Another bill file has been opened, but we're waiting to see what it actually says. We're really trying to push for help in knowing that if you do cover these costs, sometimes your premiums will be raised because they're under the age of 18. We've seen some models in other states where they've done a reimbursement or an incentive to an employer to help offset those costs. So that is something that we're really truly trying to help you with, and we hope to learn more about. Before I leave, because I'm just out of time, the last thing I want to talk about is bonding. This is very quick. We have a federal bonding program that allows employers and assists employers with hiring individuals who have been formerly incarcerated, maybe receiving public assistance, maybe from a disadvantaged community. Youth are usually considered a disadvantaged population because they lack work history. They either have a very limited work history or no work history at all. So we do have pamphlets here, again, for the bonding program. The bonds are given in $5,000 increments. It's at no cost to you as the employer. Workforce Services is responsible to help you through that process. You can receive up to $25,000 and it covers the new hire for the first 6 months. And then you can renew it as an employer for an additional 6 months. So again, this is just a way that we're trying to help you leverage additional resources to offset that risk. But it's something that is very exciting and we hope to support you more in. So now I'm going to turn the time over to Rochelle and Marty to talk more about the program dynamics.
Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here with you today. As a way of introduction, my name is Rochelle Ackley. I am the Program Manager of K-12 Initiatives for Talent Ready Utah in the Commissioner's Office of Higher Education. Just real quickly, a brief background behind Talent Ready Utah and what we're about. We are an industry-facing department that works to address workforce needs throughout the state. We help support convening industry and education to align educational programs to workforce needs to make sure that we have the workforce that we need throughout the state.
You can keep that, I'll just yell. So my name is Martin Moore, I'm with Utah Manufacturing Association. And prior to being with UMA, I was actually at the technical colleges over at Davis Tech, working with President Brush and some of the other people that are here. So I have a vast background in how that system works, and have been here since the beginning on getting this project up and running.
So we've heard from Elisa a little bit about what it means to have an apprenticeship, the different components of an apprenticeship, which include on-the-job learning, but also classroom learning. There's also elements that tie into mentorship and mentoring your apprentices. There's lots of moving parts when it comes to an apprentice. And one of the biggest moving parts, we would say, is marketing and recruiting. We need to let students become aware of the program and the opportunity that they have. So together, Marty and I are working to help facilitate resources to employers to be able to be successful in their marketing and outreach and recruiting students into their apprenticeship program. My role in this is really bringing our education partners to the table and connecting them with industry, while Marty is really focused on outreach to industry and connecting them with education. So together, we are working to really build strong and meaningful relationships between the employers who will be participating in this program and our teachers and educators.
My role with this would be that one spot where industry can go when they have questions and where we can get you to get the right answers to answer those questions. We've got great relationships with the school districts, we've got great relationships with the tech colleges, and this, from the very beginning, has been industry driven because you guys need to be the ones directing where this thing goes.
So we're focused on connecting you with the right personnel within our school districts as well as our technical colleges to really help you reach the right student audience that has an interest in manufacturing and machining. A few of the ways that we are doing that is utilizing things like field trips, where we bring students out to the sites of your companies to really explore and see firsthand what it would be like to work on your floors.
We had a great opportunity back in November where we took 70 kids from Granite School District and we took them over to Clean Machine. We broke them up into 4 different groups and then we took them through the process so that they could see how this bar stock goes into making this token that Brad had designed for the students there. It was very engaging. They got to really see what it is inside of a shop and understand what is actually going on there.
Additionally, Marty and I are here to help connect you to the teachers who are teaching students the competencies that they need to know in order to be successful when working in your sites. So we're capitalizing on student interest by utilizing classroom presentations, having you as employers in the classroom in front of students, really expanding your audience to reach a larger number of students and really raise their awareness and their interest.
We also are going to drive CTE coordinators and CTE directors into there so that they have a better understanding of what's going on inside your shops. They really only know what they know, right? For the most part, if we went out and asked them what X company does, they're probably not going to be able to tell us. So we need to do some education in helping them understand what it is to be a CNC machinist and what that career looks like beyond just what they see on the surface of things.
Students, teachers, counselors, they are only part of the audience. The other part of our audience here is parents and those individuals who influence a student's choice when it comes to their career path. And so Marty and I are here to help work within the school district to set up events where we can interact and bring you to interact with parents who really play a critical role in helping students make decisions as far as what pathway they're going to take as they approach high school graduation.
Parents don't know either, that's for sure.
Additionally, we found that parents are part of your talent pool as well, and particularly in some areas within the state, as we reach out to students and their parents, we found that some of those parents are also looking for career opportunities or career changes. So the important part of marketing is closing the loop. We spend a lot of time doing outreach where we're taking a student to your site, we're having you in the classroom as employers interacting with those students and giving them more information. But what do we do with the students once they are interested? And this is where we're working really closely with district personnel, but also with UMA as the group sponsor for this apprenticeship program to connect students who are interested or who have expressed interest in participating in the apprenticeship program to you as employers and putting together a process that makes that really seamless and smooth so that they can begin their apprenticeship with a really solid foundation.
We were able to do that with the kids that actually came out and met with Clean Machine. We then were able to hold interviews with the employers and with the students at Ranger High to talk to and kind of vet them to see if they were going to be a good fit for the system. We duplicated that on the north end of things up at JD Machine Work and Parker with Bonneville High School.
So just to conclude, I want to give you a little glimpse into our timeline as we're setting up this apprenticeship program. Currently, we're partnering with Granite School District and Weber School District and the employers that Matt had mentioned at the beginning of this presentation. So we're working really on establishing and fine-tuning the program and standing it up. Over the course of the summer, where we find there's interest from industry to participate in this program, Marty and I will be working to connect with you and connect with the school districts that are in your region to start putting together the apprenticeship program in your region to launch in August.
This can't be a passive thing for industry as well. We've got to have your engagement. If this is something that you want to pursue, we'll need some help in opening your doors to these groups as well.
All right, and with that, I'll turn the time over to Peter.
Thanks, Michelle. Thanks, Marty. So my name's Peter Reed. I'm with Talent Ready Utah. Been there for a little while, but before that I was at Salt Lake Community College. And while I was there, I had the amazing opportunity to work with Megan Ware, to work with Staller to develop their youth apprenticeship. So I'm really happy to be able to be in front of this group today, still talking about youth apprenticeship. So I get to talk about the details a little bit more of the training component for this apprenticeship. Of course, for a good apprenticeship, you have both classroom training and on-the-job learning. Because like every industry partner I talk to, you know, they really like this program at this school, they really like this program at this other school, but they wish they had experience too at the same time. And that's really what this youth apprenticeship does. It gets them that classroom learning and experience all at the same time. So when they're done, you have somebody that has both and they can actually be productive on the job. So we really wanted to make sure that we created the classroom side that was flexible enough to handle a lot of different situations. So we have this, so either a student can start in high school and do all their classroom training there. They can do all their classroom training at tech school. Or they can do a combination of both, and we worked out how to do those articulations back and forth, how to evaluate the learning that happens at high school to make sure that transfers over to tech school, all while they're working on the job at the same time. Now, the other piece to that was, well, what do they need to learn? And this is kind of one of the big places we started this conversation is, well, what do we want these apprentices to know? What should they be able to do by the time they finish this apprenticeship? Because it's not a full-blown 4-year machining apprenticeship, it's a machining technician. So we really kind of narrowed down what we want them to do, and that's how we got what knowledge and skills that we're gonna have in this program and that they're gonna see in the classroom and on the job. So a lot of it, of course, is gonna revolve around setting up and running CNC machines. It's interesting to me that when we started, the first thing you think is, okay, well, let's start with manual machining, all those principles, and work all the way through, and industry said, well, that's not exactly what we're looking for. These positions are CNC techs. We don't teach kids how to write cursive anymore. We teach them how to use a keyboard. So let's teach them how to do this work on a CNC machine. So that's a big place we really focus with this. And of course, we're gonna involve safety. We're gonna involve, regular housekeeping, how to be an employee on the job. So a lot of these topics you'll see here, we're teaching in the classroom, but we're also reinforcing it on the job too. We don't wanna have things only in one place. If we're teaching them something in school, we want them to be able to apply that at work. If they're learning something at work, well, we want them to understand how that fits into all the things they're learning in school while they're sitting in the back of the classroom. Now, we are very sensitive to the fact that not every business is the same. So there isn't ever gonna be one apprenticeship that perfectly fits everybody in this room. So there is some flexibility built into this. Even with a registered apprenticeship, we still have about a 25% kind of window. We can modify our apprenticeships for our business to still operate within the same apprenticeship. So there's still some continuity from one business to the next. But if I'm doing a lot more deep burning, or if I'm doing a lot more grinding, I want that to be in my apprenticeship where maybe the person down the street isn't focusing on that so much. I can still build that into mine and still stay within this apprenticeship. And of course, even if we want to change more than just that 25%, there are still a lot of ways that, especially with Lisa Stark and especially Marty with UMA, can help work with you to make sure that in the end, you're getting the apprenticeship that you need and not just what's available. The other piece to this is a lot of the classroom training is competency-based. So that helps us a lot. If we have somebody that comes in to this apprenticeship and they've gone through some of the classroom training at high school, they go to tech school, well, it's competency-based, so they can show their competency right away. It's not necessarily gonna take everybody the same amount of time to get through the classroom training. If you're somebody that really catches on, maybe you've actually worked part-time in a machine shop, you've had some exposure to it, maybe you've done some of these things as a new apprentice, well, then you can show your competency, you can move on, you're not stuck to a specific schedule, so you can learn a little bit faster. If you're a good employee, you're picking up things really fast at work, you can go through the classroom training a little bit quicker to get things done, to move on and not be held back in a certain space. Of course, everything takes money, doesn't it? Just so happens, we have a lot of places to get funding to help us develop, maintain, and even just think out through some of how an apprenticeship is gonna work for me. So of course, our first funding stream is through UDMC. That's kind of how we started this particular one. So we had some funding through that was designed to help out the aerospace and defense manufacturing industry here in Utah. And we had the first conversation, they said, well, really, we need a lot of machinists. So that's where we started working on apprenticeships. We still have some funding there. That's what's gonna help us do some of our marketing efforts. That's what's gonna help us do our gap analysis and find out, well, at our training facilities, do we need more equipment? Do we need more instructors? Do the instructors need training? And then we also have programs like the Talent Ready Connections program that is all about funding work-based learning. So whether that's apprenticeship or whether it looks a little bit different, but that's another funding source for these apprenticeships as well. Of course, one of the other great benefits to being a registered DOL apprenticeship is there's a lot of federal money out there for apprenticeships as well. So there's that opportunity, and there's also the Return to Work program, which is a little bit different. But what's interesting about that is that's a program where the funding actually goes directly to our industry partners and not necessarily to an education partner who's going to develop education for our industry partners. So any questions on any of that? Sounds like no. All right. But I think Megan's video is up next.
Good morning. My name is Megan Ware, and I am the Director of Workforce Development with the Utah Manufacturers Association. I am thrilled to be joining you this morning. Unfortunately, I'm not here live. I am actually in Germany right now visiting youth apprenticeship programs in Germany. A little history about me before I get started on the administration part from the employer's perspective. I came to UMA from Stadler Rail. And while at Stadler Rail, I was in the pilot, heavily involved in the pilot program of the youth apprenticeship program that they are currently running there and now is in its 4th year. So just a little bit more, I know you've heard a lot today about the value of an apprenticeship. It really does bring a lot to your workforce, and not only just in the diversity, but it does, I think, on both sides, both the youth side and your incumbent employees side, bring a lot to your workplace. So improved productivity. These students come in, and really, when we first started the program at Stadler, I really did not anticipate that we would see a lot of ROI probably until about the 6-month mark. I was very, very wrong. We really started about the same as you would any other employee, about that 90-day mark, and some of the bright ones even before that. It really does give you a skilled workforce, but it's in a more organic way. You are not training someone coming in their mid-20s, 30s, even older 40s from new. These students are learning these skills in a way that is built to do it gradually and build the skills on top of each other. So it really is, they do learn them and they do learn the skills properly. Retention, it's interesting when you bring in a program like this. I think that it has an effect that, of course, the apprentices are getting a wonderful opportunity, but I think additionally your employees that you have can see that the opportunity that you are giving the community and these youth, and interestingly enough, many of them will find ways to hopefully have their child participate in it. And then just the improved productivity overall. So next I wanted to talk about we need to make a change. We are currently in a situation where employees are jumping from manufacturer to manufacturer, machine shop to machine shop for as little as 50 cents an hour. And what that is doing is it's not doing any good for any of us. This shapes your workforce. As I said before, it shapes it organically, and it starts students understanding young that manufacturing is a very, very viable career and can be a very, very successful career. That first year, apprentices, while they're still in high school, as a senior in high school, they will go to school 50% of the time, so say on their A day, and then on that B day or that second day, they will be at your workplace, working alongside your employees, learning the skills that they need to learn to certify and rather hopefully later on become a full member of your workforce. The alignment really, you need to align, and we will help you align with your local school district where your company is located and the corresponding tech school. So next, just a little bit about the integration of them into your company. They are paid employees, just like the rest of your employees, but I think something to remember is that for many of these employees or these apprentices, this may be their first real experience in a job setting. So that onboarding piece, which as you all know is critical for any new employee, is incredibly critical for these apprentices. Walking them through things like your company culture, expectations, rules and regulations, how to clock in and out. This wouldn't seem like a huge thing, but it was a big stumbling block for many of our employees. If you are having them change between projects, changing in the time clock system, safety, as you know. And just remember that whereas you might only need to do this once or twice for a regular employee, this is something that probably for the first 90 days, you're going to have to go over multiple times. Many of them will not have a checking account for direct deposit. Many of them will not have the proper ID. And so these are things that UMA as the intermediary will help you with as we're recruiting these students. But just remembering that this is stuff that they may not know and they may not understand. And so just patience and making sure that you have someone working with them, understanding all of these things that go into the integration. So the core components of an apprenticeship, whether it be an adult apprenticeship, a journeyman apprenticeship, or a youth apprenticeship, first and foremost is a paid job. These students are paid to be there, and then as a part of it is their training. And so just taking that into account and really setting that salary, those salary expectations and those salary landmarks, that career path. When you accomplish A, your salary goes to B, those types of things. I think many of the times when companies lose these apprentices, particularly youth apprentices, is that there's not a very clear step path for them to follow and understand where those pay increases will come. Setting those core hours. It is really, really important that for that first year while they are in high school, that you follow those school hours. So if they are normally in school from 7:30 to 2:30, I would suggest not deviating too far out of those hours, 8 to 3, 7 to, whatever that is. There are some that will want to work more, but understanding that these are still high school kids, they may participate in extracurricular activities, and many of them we have found actually have a second job. They may work at a fast food restaurant in the evenings and weekends. The third thing is just making sure that that training plan corresponds with those steps, those landmarks for the paid job. What is the training plan? What does it look like from our perspective? And what competencies do we need to teach them here versus what they are learning either at the high school or in the tech school? So developing that training plan, it's really important. And many of you, most of you, I'm sure, have a training plan for your incumbent employees. So that is not going to change that much, but you might just have to, once again, dial it back. Meet the students where they are. This is also something that UMA and our partners can help with, but working with that tech school, making sure that it focuses, your training plan focuses on competencies that are more specific to you versus the general level that they will learn at the tech school. And by doing this, you really will increase your talent pipeline and hopefully learn things that you can cross over to your incumbent employees as well. So I think that this is the single most important piece for success, is developing those mentors for apprentices. Just like when we promote someone to a leader, we can't just anticipate that they will know how to lead people. They may know how to manage processes, but they likely will not necessarily know how to lead people. Same with developing these mentors. These mentors need to provide support, coaching, guidance, and they really just are that go-to person for your apprentices. They need to understand how these students work, how they operate, and remember that this generation is a new generation. They're digitally native, but they may not understand that they need to have their phone in their locker or not on the floor. They may not understand why they can't wear headphones for safety. So just making sure that as you develop these mentors, that they are a mentor and not a parent or an intimidating supervisor. And sometimes your mentor and your supervisor may be the same, sometimes they may not. It really depends on how you look at it and how your structure works. Mentors, I can't express this enough, how much they make a difference. Not only do your apprentices benefit from these mentors and all that they give, but don't underestimate what the mentors will get back. I watched, at Stadler, I watched people that became mentors really grow in their leadership skills and go on to, once they were done mentoring, go on to lead very successful teams. But just make sure that you are giving them the skill sets and support they need as mentors, and make sure that you're giving them the time that they need to work with the apprentices as well. That piece is just absolutely critical. So I talked a little bit about the intermediary, but UMA, our foundation, so each Manufacturers Association has a foundation, which is a 501c3, and we will act as the intermediary for these apprentices. So basically, in a very short kind of statement of what an intermediary is, we're going to fill those structural gaps, ensure that programs can fulfill their potential. We're here to offer structure and support to your apprenticeship program. That's things like working with you through HR topics, onboarding, recruiting, all of those things. We're here to support those. We're here to facilitate the connections with the school districts and the tech schools. And then, like I say, we'll help you with the promoting and interviewing and recruiting of these students. Liability, this is kind of the elephant in the room that everybody asks about. It depends, but we are currently, and Marty will give a better update to this bill when he speaks, because I am doing it as far as I know as of January 31st when I filmed this. But we are working with our legislators on legislation that will support our industry partners in bringing minors into the workplace. There is already a really good structure for unpaid apprentices, unpaid internships, and we are working to take that same setup with the unpaid and move it to our paid. And we are working with other groups like the Associated General Contractors. As Melissa mentioned, whether the legislation passes or not, you still can look into the bonding that DWS does offer. So Marty will give a bigger update to this bill, but please know that we are working on it. It is a major priority for UMA on the Hill this year. And with that, that's all I have. You are welcome to reach out to either Marty or myself at any time, and we will be reaching out to you in turn with updates about where we are with the pilot and how we are looking to roll this out over the next 12 to 18 months. Thank you so much.
Well, and here's your update. So we're working with Talent Ready Utah, with Senator Moss, is that Representative Moss, excuse me. And we're still in process, but we're pretty hopeful that this is gonna work out.
So just a little bit of an introduction on Montez King. He is you're a journey level machinist, is that right? Yeah, so his background way back is that he gone through a registered apprenticeship, and he is now the president, leader of the NIMS Association. That's a very highly regarded association in manufacturing for standards and credentials. I know at Ogden Weber Tech, their program is modeled after the NIMS standard, and there's a lot of exciting things going on with NIMS. I talked to a colleague of mine in Texas that is using this process, and he's highly he endorsed the process. So we appreciate Montez being in here today, and gonna kind of introduce what resources are available to you to take care of the important part of this process of creating the standards that we need to teach inside of our companies.
Still morning time. Hello, everyone. Can you hear me? I'm just not going to use a microphone. Everyone back there? Okay. So, NIMS is historically known as a credentialing body. We develop standards and credentials, which is still true today. But another area that we help with regarding employers is how do you actually train in your literal four walls of your building? So we talked about apprenticeship today, and we talked about the system. Today, some of you may decide to make a decision on integrating apprenticeship into your program. I can assure you, making a decision to integrate apprenticeship into your program is not a solution without knowing how to train in your literal walls. I'm going to give you an example before I go through the slides, just to get everybody on the same page of what this means. Think about your triggers of training. When do you actually train someone? Take the apprenticeship out of it. When do you actually train someone when they come into your building? Usually right at the start of the first day. You call it onboarding, right? Everyone can agree with that. You onboard. How much can you tolerate with onboarding? 2 days? 3 days? Bigger companies might even say 5 days or 2 weeks. But after onboarding, what's your next trigger of training? How do you know actually, do you expect them to know how to perform their job and make decisions and set up and configure after onboarding? That's not likely. So if that's not likely, how do you know when to stop them for training? Usually onboarding is to get them productively independent as an operator, but after that, where do you go from there? So kind of think about it in that perspective as we go through the slides. Now, when we go through it, I'm going to give you some rabbits. Just I call it rabbits, just things to think about. You know, everything has to be high level today, but things I just want you to think about as we go through. So we're using a framework called Smart Training Solutions. Very powerful framework because it can handle very simple problems when it comes to OJT or on-the-job training, but it can also handle very complex problems. So we're going to just walk you through it. So Smart Training Solutions is an innovative framework for modernizing training to keep up with the pace of emerging technologies and building a bridge between your educators and your employers. So let's think about technology for a second. We have machine shops. We have machine shops here, I assume. Yeah. Okay. So if you go into your shop, it's going to hold something up like this. This might be a part in your shop. If you were in business for 20 years, anyone in business 20 years? 20 years? Do you have anything in your shop that you've made for the last 20 years? And you still make it today? Yeah. You might have had some modifications to it, but it's the same part. So from that perspective, you could say, well, things haven't changed much. But think about how you made that part 20 years ago versus how you make that part today. See, that's what's changed. That's your technology. It's constantly moving at a fast pace. And for you to be profitable, you have to constantly invest in the technology, especially in your business. So when it comes to training, your training has to keep up with that change. So let's go through here. We're going to play a video, and it's just a 1-minute video. I don't know where the sound is going to go. Okay, I'll turn it down. Just tell me what you saw once the video's over. Very short video. For thousands of years, technology has moved, but at a very slow pace. We rode the backs of animals, gazed at outer space but could not reach it, delivered information at a snail's pace. Now think about all that has changed in the last 100 years. It's not just about what has changed, it's about how fast we got here. From the Model T Ford to high-performance vehicles manufactured by the thousands, from early flight to walking on the moon, from computers that fit in the size of a room to smartphones that fit in your pocket, from robotics and automation to the connectivity of it all. The pace of technology is shaping what we do and how we train exponentially in the workplace. Okay, just need a volunteer. Tell me what you saw in that video. What's your perspective on it? What did you see? Just anyone.
Progression of technology.
The progression of technology. It's moving very fast. I don't have a board here, but I'm just gonna draw something up and kind of show you what's happening in the video. So, anyone tell me what this looks like? What does that look like?
Good time.
A good time, right? What's that look like? A martini glass, right? Yeah, it's a martini glass. That's just a little joke there. I'm just gonna take the olive off. And I'm just gonna fill it up. You can't really see it, but what is it now? It's a funnel. Yes, that's right. So if you have a funnel and you fill it up with water and you're watching it drain, when the funnel is filled to the top, is the water moving slow or fast compared to if you were at that vortex? Slow. You see, thousands of years ago, we were up here. Today, with technology, we're down at the vortex, so everything moves like this. I'm gonna move a second. Look. Everything moves like that. Very fast. Very fast. And because of that, we have to think about how we're training. Now, I'm gonna prove it to you. I'm gonna go to the next slide. No pun intended to educators in the room. What do you see there? That's an acronym. If NIMS started working with your company and started helping you to develop your training, internal, talking about apprenticeship, but there's different components of it. So on the job, you have to have your own specificity, your own training. If we were to help you, that apple would have a stem to the tree. NIMS would be the tree. And the apple sitting off. But once we hand it over to you, you be a volunteer, this is the training. I'm gonna hand it over to you. There you go. We handed you over that training, right there. I cut it off the stem. What starts happening with that? What I gave you? Starts to rot. I'm gonna take that back. Give it some water. You see, it's gonna rot. So if you are developing your training internally, you've got to have something called change awareness. It's not about just developing competencies. If you don't have this one component into your company, your training will decay the minute you hand it over to someone and say, here you go. That's just one rabbit I'm showing right now of what change awareness is. So change awareness looks like this. Change comes from employee responsibilities, which we call standards, and work processes. Your work processes are constantly changing, which is driving change in your training. You sometimes change your responsibilities because now I got a CNC that can do this, and I don't need someone to do that manually. So their responsibilities change. So change is driven from both areas. Whatever you put in place, it has to be smart enough to adapt to change. Okay, so that's one rabbit. Can't tell you how we do it. It's too high level. But I'm telling you what we see. So these are beanstalk beans. Anyone know that story, beanstalk? Jack and the beanstalk? He plants the beans and it grows. Yeah. I can give you the beans. There's only how many beans? 6 beans. But you can only take one. And if I give you that bean, it'll give you everything you look for in this respect. But I can only give you one. Which bean are you gonna take? Are you gonna take the tasks or the competencies that you may call it? Are you gonna take performance standards, training equipment, learning content, trainer instructions, training principles and behaviors? Which bean would you take? It'll give you everything you want, I promise. Anyone, volunteer. I'll give you a free gift that anyone can get.
Training principles.
Who's that? You're not my friend right now.
It was the last one you said.
That's the actual right
It
answer.
was the last one you went to, so I just said.
Very good. It is the right one. Look, it doesn't matter how accurate your competency list is, or your performance standards, or all these other things. If you don't have the right behaviors in your shop, all of it goes down. Doesn't matter how accurate that is. Yes. So they're magical, you can see, but the right one is training principles and behaviors. Now, right over here, I got a book. This is free, so there's only a few of them. So grab it. This used to be, part of my dissertation used to be a really thick book. But then I realized that manufacturers won't read a thick book. So we made it into a very thin guide to help get started. So it has the 7 principles and the 56 behaviors used to carry out your principles. So look at your principles as what you believe in. That's what you believe in. And your behaviors are what you do to carry it out. Now, many of us believe in a lot of things, but we don't always behave that way. So you gotta assess if your behaviors align to your principles. We're all guilty of this. So there are 7 here. This is based on, these charts are not in order, 1 through 7, 1 through 7. But the gold represents what the company said they believed in, and the blue represents their behaviors. So the key is, it's not the intensity of your belief, but it's making sure you have this alignment. You can see that anomaly here. Now, out of the 7 principles, just for what you can read in this description, which one of the 7, I'm gonna ask you again, which one of the 7 principles meets this anomaly? It's not in order. So would you say train from the end? Would you say separate environment, stakeholder environment, separate training and evaluator? If you pick it, you're saying from a self-evaluation of over 30 employers, they all agreed that what they believe and their behaviors align perfectly. Which one is it? Anyone? Any volunteer?
True performance and validation?
True performance validation. I'll tell you that it is actually number 1. Most employers say, if I want a machinist, that's what I'm training towards. If I want a machinist, that's what I'm training towards. That's training from the end. Now watch this. As we went through the self-evaluation, we had to go through a needs analysis because everything's based on perspective. So let's really focus on this one. After a needs analysis with NIMS, this is what it actually looked like. Say what you saw. What did you see there? This is from their self-evaluation. That's what it looks like. But after a needs analysis, this is what it actually came out. So their intensity for this principle increased and their behaviors decreased. Because they thought, well, gee whiz, I thought I was training for a machinist. That's what we want, but we really weren't doing it. The details of that, maybe if I have enough time, I don't want to run out of my time, so I'm going to move forward and show another perspective. When we went through a study, we determined all of the different components of a training program that most companies would agree with. They said, okay, the company's going to set the policies, the duties, the standards for performance, the procedures. They thought, wow, trainers, trainees, that's the apprentice, that's the journey person, the evaluator. You got your standards, activities, your training towards, trainer instructions, your tasks, your data. Now what? After a needs analysis, they agreed this is what they needed in their beliefs, but after a needs analysis, this is what it looked like. Say what you saw. Just a couple moments to say what you saw. What did you see there? I'll tell you. Number 1, the evaluator is gone. Most companies do not have a separate evaluator. What that means is they're using their trainers to say this person can do the job. There's a lot of problems with that. They should be training to say their training is done, but when you say they're ready, they can perform the job, a lot of problems with that. I'm gonna give you another one. Look at this. The trainer shrunk and the employer shrunk. Because it's not a stakeholder environment. In these environments, the trainee is the only performer. You need to be able to handle all of these tasks after training. You have a formal assessment. But as a trainer, there's nothing for you. I don't know if you properly train this person. There's nothing for you. As a company, I don't even know if I gave you the opportunities to learn. It's been 2 years and you don't know anything yet. I have no idea. I mean, was it because the opportunities were there and you didn't take it? We don't know. So in this environment, the trainee is the performer and the trainer and the organization is not the performer. These all cause complex problems in the shop. Keep going. Most when we think about training, we think about your tasks. We need to know the competence. We need to know the competencies. I'm going to give you something. I can give you the most accurate competency list. How do you know when to check those boxes off? That's a basic question. How do you know when to check the boxes off? And the average, the company list is very accurate. It's everything you want them to know. You see, you don't know when to check the boxes off, so the company list becomes meaningless. You see, I'm running out of time, but I'm going to give you this little example to help you see it. When you're training, you need to know what you want them to learn. And you need to know how many jobs do you have in your ERP system? 1,000? 200? 300? What are the right ones to train on? You need to know that. So when those types of jobs come up, they become your opportunities. And then you have to associate those opportunities with the task list. So when they can do these jobs successfully independently, I know when to check the boxes off and I know what to train towards. So I don't have a lot of time because I'm cutting it close. Okay, so what's a needs analysis? Responses from the needs analysis are based on perspectives and filled with fallacies. It's an online self-evaluation that people take. It takes a long time, it's about an hour. It's 100 clicks. But if you answer it honestly, it will tell you all of your deep secrets. Okay, that's a joke. It does. These fallacies are realized through key considerations. I'm going to date myself a little bit. But key considerations are things that make you go, what's it? Exactly. I'm going to give you things that make you say, we never thought of that. Okay? And then, so there are thought experiments used to stimulate the discussions. And then it helps us to reveal the behaviors you need. So 7 principles of behavior is going to be different from every company. But we don't tell you what your behaviors need to be. Watch this. All we need to hear from each behavior is this from you. We do that, but we shouldn't. That's all I'm looking for. Okay, watch this. We do that, but we can improve how we do it. Okay, watch this. We do that, and we are satisfied with how we do it, which we hardly ever get this one. Okay. We don't do that, but we should. We don't do that, and we don't want to do it. If you answer these questions through a needs analysis, it's going to, again, help us get to your really deep secrets and help clear it all up. Okay, so now, it doesn't matter which one you choose. We're just looking for, It doesn't matter which one you choose. I hit the wrong button, fat finger. We're just looking for which one aligns to you. So now I'm going to give you some rules for engagement because we help employers do this across the country. Matter of fact, that's how I met up with Matt. We were helping an employer, I believe, in Texas, and we met up with Matt. They went through this whole process. I'm going to give you rules of engagement. The amount of training is balanced with peak productivity. Let me tell you this. If you train too much or too little, what happens to productivity? Those things. If you train too much, what happens to your productivity? Same difference. You can't train too much, you can't train too little. If you're hiring people from Starbucks and Walmart, your peak is going to be different than if you hire them from the tech center. You see, it's a big difference. That peak is dynamic, it's constantly moving. You have to always know when your peak is. You have to always know when that peak is. I can't get into how we do it. I can tell you everything we do is very practical and very easy. But I'm only telling you what's necessary. Here's another thing. Training oscillates around existing resources. let me give you the term oscillation. If we're working with your company to help you train, oscillation means this. Anything that disrupts your production is oscillation. So it goes like this. Like you order, yeah, it goes like that. So if someone doesn't show up for work, what happens? Blip. If you don't have enough people to do the job, what happens? Blip, blip. If you crash the machine and it doesn't work, blip, 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 blip. That's oscillation. Guess what training is? Go ahead and say it. What is training? Oscillation. If you don't accept that from the beginning, then don't try to train, because training is oscillation. The point of training is that you get the greater return on the investment for doing it. But it is going to oscillate, so that means it's going to slow down productivity. So that's what we mean by oscillation. But if we're working with the organization, what we're saying is, we help you with your internal training with exactly what you have. We will oscillate it around existing resources. We will never say you need to buy something to get better training, to get better productivity. You need to hire someone. It's completely with what you got. But oscillation also moves forward to knowing when you're developing training, you always, if you want to know your return on investment and you don't know how much you oscillated your production, how could you ever do that? Does everyone agree with me? You could never know the return on investment unless you know how much you oscillate. So anytime we develop training, we always know how much it oscillates to do it. Okay. So those are your 2 rules of engagement. Okay. So kind of like what a needs analysis outcome is. I don't know if your training is mature or immature. When we say that, it's no insult. When we say it's mature training, it's just a company that has some type of structure. Immature training is where basically you put them on the floor and you say, raise your hand if you have a problem, and learn by osmosis. Over time, you should learn something. It's been 3 years. What do you know? That's a very immature training. It's very popular. We call it learning by osmosis. You see, I have a post out. It's Garfield. He sits on a pile of books and he's sleeping. And he has a message over his head saying, I'm learning by osmosis. He thinks he's learning just by laying on the books. You gotta admit this is what happens in the machine. I was an apprentice, believe me. I only learned because I wanted it. If you didn't want it, you weren't gonna learn, because no one can give you anything. Oh, okay, let me stick to this. So if you have a mature program, even if it's a moderate change, some of these changes will give you a great deal of improvement. If you have an immature program, then there could be a lot of change, but we want the same difference or same results we want. So now I got a few minutes left just to tell you how we actually work with an employer. This is just a big picture of some of the plays, but I'm going to skip that to how you get started. So, in order for you to successfully put an apprenticeship in your program, you have to realize this. I can take the same apprenticeship, the same system, and put it in 10 different companies and get 10 different results. Why is that? Same apprenticeship and 10 different results. It's because apprenticeship is a system, but it needs execution methods for it to work. When I say a system, it's going to have a paid component. It's going to have a theoretical component. It's going to have an OJT component. It's going to have credentials. It's going to have a system of complaints, a selection process. It's going to have mentoring. These are all components. That's a decision. You decide, I'm going to put these pieces in. But if you don't have good methods to execute those components, how successful do you think your program will be? You see the point here? So it's not just your system, it's your system and your execution methods. So we help with your execution methods to make sure your apprenticeship actually works. So you're not twiddling your thumbs when you have a new employee come in and say, well, I don't know what to do, put them over there with Charlie. I don't know what to do. So you don't want to be in that situation. So to get started, you got to do an analysis. So it takes about 1 hour of your stakeholders. Who's overtrained? Who can decide to slow down production and train? Who would be your trainers? Is it peer-to-peer training? Is it direct training? Who's going to be those people? and have them take an online self-evaluation. It will take an hour of their time. Yes, it will take an hour. But it's not for our benefit, it's for your benefit, to help you see exactly what their perspective is. Now, from that point, actually, this right here is the familiar, this is the book. So this, you can familiarize yourself with this book before you take the self-evaluation. And then this would be the self-evaluation here. This is the discover part. And then from that point, this is when we will come out to your shop. And it's a grueling 10 hours. I will not lie to you. It's a grueling 10 hours. But we come out to your shop, and in 10 hours, we can break down your shop and reveal all the areas that need to be improved and show you how to do it in 10 hours. It's grueling. It's fun. We make it fun, you know, but it's like, wow, we're going to spend 10 hours on training? Yes, 10 hours. We don't do it all in one day, but it's a process. And at that point, we promise you it will change your life. You will say, if you don't walk out and say this solved these age-old problems that we've had in the shop since I've been here, since I was an apprentice, since this person. If you don't say that, whatever you invest in it, we'll give it back to you. That's our guarantee. But this is how you get started. The first thing you need to know is where your problems are. And then from there, you can decide on however you want to fix them. But we give you the actual methods of how to do it. We don't just tell you what the problems are, but we're going to give you a playbook and show you exactly how to fix it. Exactly how to fix it. So that's my time here. It's high level. If you want to learn more, we've got a lot of, can I just say what I have?
Please.
So, steal the books, take them. But this little postcard here, if you want to challenge the efficacy of your training program, there's a little QR code on the back that'll take you to a self-evaluation. Have your people take it. The password is discover with a capital D. But just take this, go through it. It's no cost to you. It'll give you a gap analysis, goes right to your email. Check your spam. It comes from support@NIMS-skills, and sometimes it goes into spam. But that's free to you. We're here. We're nonprofit. We're about societal change. So you're not talking like, how does NIMS make money? It's not about that. Here's another postcard. This helps you to learn smart training solutions. There's a QR code, play it. It's a 2 or 3 minute video. Helps you to understand smart training solutions a little better. How many of you have an LMS in your company? Learning management system? Yeah. Does it solve all your problems? You say, be honest. So learning management systems are about, they're track, they keep records of training. But you need to measure performance. There's a difference between keeping a record of training saying, I trained you and you received the training. And I say, yeah, you know how to do the job. That's not performance. That's just a training record. Performance is when I've observed you or verified the work that you were supposed to do. You take your actual workplace activities and you formalize it into the assessment. A training record is just saying you were trained, but performance is totally different. So we use a technology that helps you measure performance and to proactively detect training opportunities rather than just keeping a record of when I decide to train. That's why we call it smart training solution, because it actually has that intelligence to detect it right from your ERP system. So that was another thing. So this is just high level, and then I have a little. This is for the kids, and I wear it all the time. And this is just a pen. It's got the USA on it and smart training solutions. So please just take this. We want you to just get that, and that's my time.
Thank you, Montez.
Thank you.
Awesome.
All right.
how it looks like my 8th grade graduation picture got on that slide. I'm a slow learner, but my mother's still proud of me. This is a case where I think 1 + 1 = 3. What I mean by that is, I ran operations all over North America before, and I've never really experienced this expert level of collaboration between government, education, industry, down to the level of our NTMA association. It's been a beautiful thing, and I really think because of the class these people have and all of their expertise in their respective areas coming together with an attitude of we're gonna get something done meaningful here is really important. And I'm speaking as a business owner. It's the first time I've ever really experienced being able to tap on the shoulder of somebody that claims they've got a lot of resources and they've got all the answers, and they bring all of their resources in. We've got it covered. Marty's like a concierge to me, and that's important as a business owner. I don't have time to work all of the detail of a program like this, and so I can call on Marty and say, hey, I need some students, we're going to talk here, let's schedule a field trip. He gets it done. I just want to impress upon you that service is available and it's very valuable. All right. So the employer's role is as important as every one of these persons' roles in this effort. I used to sit back and, speaking of the law of the farm, I grew up on a farm, so you kind of have to understand that to grow anything, you've got to have the right environment. You've got to have the right conditions. You've got to have the right food, fertilizer, water. You have to work it every day. That's how I see an employer's role in this effort to be beneficial, to pay you back, pay those students back. We just can't throw a seed in the dirt and yell at it grow. It's just not going to happen. So I figured out real quickly, if I'm going to make this thing work for my business, I've got to be engaged. I've got to participate like I never have, especially with schools. But it's proven to be very beneficial. So as I see our role as not only just that, but number one is to provide that safe environment. That safe environment comes through good safety practices, making sure that we're up to speed with our safety training for all employees, that we actually set up an environment for learning, meaning we understand those kids' schedules, we understand they're at a different level than some or most of our current employees, and we have to bring them into this program with an environment where it's set up to learn. That's what we're trying to accomplish. Mentorship, you've heard it said a couple of times, and I'll reiterate that point, is having somebody that is assigned to, that can relate to these kids probably better than I can, on the floor, helping them through these learning situations that we're all going to create, is really key to their success and ours as leading a program like this. So make sure you got a training guy or gal on your staff that they're aware that, they haven't dealt with high school kids before. It's a little bit different. We have to be a little more patient, a little more open with how we go about our training with them. Every employer is going to be part of a regional group, which means you're going to be dealing with high schools, tech schools that are in your region. Get involved with those regional participants. It helps close the loop on who's involved with this thing. We do that by going to the schools in our area. We talk to kids, we talk to parents. We host field trips at our businesses. And there's a whole host of other opportunities to do that, and we'll develop those as we go on. But again, my point is be really involved. I found the biggest impact that I've had with kids has been able to talk to their parents. Their parents are not aware of these opportunities that exist out there. So try and reach them when you can. Let's see what else. I think I've about covered that part of it. Again, as an employer, we can't any longer just sit back and wait for kids to come out of the schools. They're going into other jobs. Many of them don't know what the opportunities are in manufacturing or in the machining world. And our job is to help expose that. And I think that with enough effort, all those people in this room that are willing to do that, we're gonna find a couple of years down the road, we're just not gonna have this shortage like we've been experiencing in the last 5 or 6 years. That's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you, Brad. So, we've had some good questions come in, and I think we've got another slide here that, I'll just cover kind of the timeline of things. We're here in February, and as I mentioned, the intent is to have this cohort in August begin with those of you who are interested in being involved with this program. There's a lot to be there's a lot to be done. We're gonna send out all of the slides on this deck to everyone that we have an email for. This whole deal has been videoed, so you know, if you have others in your organizations you want to watch it, they can do that. But today's a kickoff meeting. We're gonna survey the interest, and this education partner outreach has been happening, and I echo what Brad said. Marty and Rochelle, this team has been amazing as an employer. I can't tell you how grateful I am for this. It really is a dream team for this to happen. Later in March, regional committees are gonna be formed, and this really is a regional deal. I'm in Weber County, Brad and Steve are in Salt Lake County. Those things are happening with the pilots, but Utah County, Cache Valley, all these areas are gonna have to really generate a regional approach to this, and we really feel like employers in regions working together the collaboration is really powerful and very, very helpful. We're better going at this together than alone. The gap analysis or program development is gonna be happening fairly early on, and which of us is doing that? Probably the UMA, Peter? Okay, from the education side, program development, that's where primarily that's gonna land on employers' shoulders. That's gonna be, you're gonna need to decide what is taught inside of your organization. You saw that list of skills, that's pretty broad. For my company, we've nailed that down a little more specific. You can keep it high level if you don't have a ton of resources to put into this, but that's where we really felt like inviting Montez and he's here today would be critical, because that's a huge help in that process. The UMA will be involved with registering the apprenticeship starting out in June. We'd like to encourage you to reach out to your local educators. Maybe they can come to work in the summer, get some experience inside of your shop. And then again, we're hoping to have students available to start this part-time work. Ideally, I mean, this is kind of a concept, but if we could have an intern or an internship or a summer job for kids finishing their junior year to work during the summer, so that when they start their senior year, they can begin this part-time work and that education portion of it. So that's just kind of covering the timeline of where we're going from here. So here's a little bigger slide. We have had some questions come through, and I have those, and I'm gonna moderate just our discussion from here. And so I've got a few questions. We won't be able to get to all of those. In the email that we send out, we will have answers to every question. So please feel free to add any other that you have up here. I wish we could just open it up, but in the interest of time, we are going to just kind of cover this. So one of the questions was, when should I start preparing and how do I get started? Marty, that's probably a good question for you. Do you wanna?
Now, right, reach out to us, like, we're ready to start getting you at the table with Talent Ready and with UMA and with the school districts and the tech colleges, so that we can get this going.
The next question is, how do I get on board with my local education partner? And that's kind of been covered. Marty did that for us, for Clean Machine. Those tours, those open houses, those things like that, that's more of the skin in the game that we as employers need to do. There's a perception of our industry that isn't entirely correct. I think we'd all acknowledge that in our society today. Most people, when they walk into any one of your shops, are gonna look at it and go, this is not quite what I expected. We have to be actively engaged in promoting this industry as a viable option for young people. So many kids feel like they are railroaded into a 4-year degree, and for many of them, that's great. For a whole bunch of them, there is a really much better option that will be able to provide for them, their families, and really contribute to our economy. Our program participants going to be fully functional machinists by the end. No, Brad, Pete, you kind of covered that one.
Yeah, we very specifically lined out our scope. They're not gonna be full-blown machinists. They're gonna be machinist technicians. So where we kind of drew the line was somebody that can do setup, but if something goes wrong, they can recognize that something's wrong, they can stop the process, but they're not gonna troubleshoot code. They're gonna talk to somebody else who can do the programming and be able to interface, tell them what's going on, but that's kind of where it stops.
And I would say it's stackable, right? So this has been from the very, very beginning, is that this is a stackable credential that will dovetail perfectly into what the technical colleges are doing, so that if there is additional education that person wanted, and it works into the longer DOL apprentice as well.
And I think that speaks to how things have changed with the Department of Labor, registered apprenticeship programs. It used to be everything was 4 years, end of story, this is just what it took. But they really have embraced those interim credentials and the ability for youth to start earlier on. What this does for them is this just makes it so that instead of 4 years after high school being prepared to be a machinist, now it's only gonna take maybe a year or two after, because they've already started in high school. And so some of these programs are already being aligned like Matt's, where they can start in high school and get those first 2 years done and have those stackable credentials that then automatically moves into his longer term program, but they're already halfway done with it, because he as the employer gets to decide, I accept this previous training for the OJT and for the classroom hours.
Thank you, and this may cover, one of the other questions here is how many apprentices that sign on for August will be considered a success? And Sandy Hemmer from Granite School District brought this up. Guys, this is really, this bus is moving down the road and there's gonna be some tire changes while it's on the freeway. We're really feeling like there's gonna be a lot of interest. Is that correct, Sandy, from your students working with Brad and Paramount's been working with Granite for quite a long time? But one of our concerns as we promote this, and are we gonna have enough employers on board? And the concern isn't the interest on the student side of it if we get this done right. Again, it's gonna be a regional thing. Sandy?
And can I make a quick comment?
Please.
And it really fits. So when I walked in the building today, you guys were coming in and students, if you notice, were going out. And 2 of the boys walking out are in the electrical program. We have been doing electrical for 20 years, movement to apprenticeships. The kids between junior and senior year, they're out on the company sites, and then they move out to the company. We haven't made it to during the school day yet, but we're getting there. But it was interesting because I said to the 2 boys, "What are you gonna do?" And they said, "Oh, we're going to this company." And I said, "Why are you going to that company?" Because we have 2 partners who figured it out. They're in our schools, they do the summer internships, the kids know who they are, and both boys said, they are a smaller company, so we believe we'll have greater advancement in those companies. They both want to be an electrician. Companies come in and say to me, "Well, you like those 2 companies better." I don't. They're on my side all the time. The kids know them. They're taking them in the summer. And so when you stop and think about success, my success is when the kids choose you before they leave high school. They already know they want you. And they want you because of the environment. When we took people out to clean machine, kids came back and said, they're really nice. Most of my kids work. They have to, they help put food on their family's table. And the other question I get all the time, which is really important for you, can my dad do this? Can we figure out how to get my dad into this? So all I'm telling you is the relationship you form with your educational partners, and especially at the high school level, will make all the difference to you. I brought Hunt and Taylor Electric in. They're gonna tell you they get our kids because they know our kids.
I would just add, Rochelle and I, we have those relationships. We are not looking to reinvent the wheel. We are not looking for our own special recipe. There is a beautiful thing that Talent Ready Utah already does, and we're just going to duplicate that. They have a ton. How many for the aerospace space?
76.
In one's district, okay? Right, is that total?
5 districts.
Five districts, excuse me.
48 from one, so.
48. But we know who we want to go for. The school districts have a tool called U-Science that is available to all of them. Granite is using it in an amazing way. It is an amazing aptitude and interest profiler that we can then further target those kids that might have an aptitude for this or an interest in this from the get-go.
So this is, again, really taking upon partnerships and initiatives that have already been developed and taking them to the next level. Because we have been working on the pathways and, what are we doing with those students once they complete? Now they've had some additional training that just puts them maybe a little bit ahead of some of those other ones that haven't received it yet, while still providing the opportunity to those ones that haven't received it yet.
I just want to share maybe a little personal experience here, guys. At JD Machine, we're in Ogden, and we have a CNC Machinist apprenticeship that was registered in 1999. And it came because we hired an individual who came from a one-man shop with a German owner that started this, and he wanted to finish an apprenticeship. And I got kind of tired of people walking up and saying, I deserve more money. And I thought, well, maybe you do, maybe you don't, I like you, okay, here you go. It was just so subjective. And the structure of an apprenticeship does have pay associated with certain levels. And ours is both time and competency based. A person has to work for a certain number of hours, but they also have to show competencies. Ours is 4 years. When we talked about this, we really liked the idea of having it segmented, and a person can do the 2-year, a person can do a 4-year. One of our questions is, what about my existing employees? I don't know if this will be for that because this is so basic, but if you want to develop a 4-year, US Synthetic has come up to my shop, we've talked about it, I'd be happy to share our experience. It hasn't been perfect. To be honest with you, it's been super expensive and it's taken a lot of time, and Travis, we had a few times that it wasn't very popular. I think that is because we bootstrapped this thing, and it was tough to get going. It took a lot of resource and it took a lot of money, to be honest with you. Being in Weber County, partnering with Ogden Weber Tech and recently Davis Tech, and we've really tried to do this outreach with the high schools and create partnerships. I can tell you it is really a powerful tool for us. And at this point in time, I'd love to have more skills in my shop, but we do have good people in my shop. So this recipe that we're talking about here in my company, I can tell you is working really, really well. And I get asked by my leadership team, why are you sharing this with other employers? Well, honestly, I believe that we're a lot stronger if this rising water will raise all boats. And I think that if there's enough people entering the industry, there appears to be plenty of work, we can all prosper together. So I think personally, I can tell you it works, and I'd be happy to talk with any of you about some of your reservations and things. We've stepped on a few landmines, but in general, this is something that we feel is very, very important to our company. So.
And I would just reiterate that, Matt, this initiative is specifically for youth. We do help adults, so again, offline, if you want to work with me, I can help you with that. Again, UMA may be an intermediary for that. USHE, the Utah System of Higher Education, is considering becoming an intermediary to help offset and to help the bootstrap, not having to do it all on your own. And so, Matt and JD Machine have definitely paved the way and have the scars, but can share a lot with you to where you don't have to go through some of those things. We do business to business networking events where we bring other employers in too to share what do they wish they would have known, what recommendations do they have for you, what are the best practices that they want to share, and anyone that's a part of that Apprenticeship Utah network like Matt is always willing to talk to you guys on a one-on-one of this is what worked for them and this is what they did and how they did it.
I just want to make sure I'm clear. From
Yes.
my experience, I see the landmines we stepped on are taken care of by this structure that we have here today. So, okay, any last minute? Oh, I've got a few more questions. Thanks, man. We've got a little bit more time here. Do you recommend pay increases for your mentors? And I want to touch on this. I think I can talk to it because we have mentors. We incentivize them. We actually, as in part of we have above our apprenticeship, we call it journey level pay scale. And people can specialize based on what they're good at. And some of them are really, really good trainers, so we incentivize them for that. All of our mentors receive an incentive, it's a monetary incentive when their apprentice passes a skill level. We found that was important. We found it was very important that the mentors had a vested interest. Some of them are gonna do it without any pay, but having that, it's just a little bit of a bonus that we give them when the skill increase happens. It helps them to keep the motivation going because it takes time, and some people are better mentors than others. Mentors are absolutely key. One other point that maybe we've had in our conversations, if you can't provide an environment where a young person can come in and be respected, number one, safe, respected, supported, this isn't for you. If you're willing to make that investment into these people and are open to, really addressing their needs, they're young people, somewhat brain damaged as we all were at that age, but that's super critical. But if a person is a mentor, you can handle it a couple of different ways. They're not in the apprenticeship, it's totally up to you. What is the precedent for liability coverage in other states? That I think there's been some things passed. Melissa, you would know that.
Yeah, so there's a few different things. Really, again, if you hire an individual, the law is the law. They're an employee, so you cover workers' comp and liability. But there are some other states that have developed either incentives or reimbursement programs for employers whose premiums increase because they hire someone under the age of 18. There's been some models in Georgia and Texas that come to mind right off the bat, where they do those incentives or provide a percentage of reimbursement for offsetting those costs. But again, because we're looking to help you fill your needs, and we're at a 2.2% unemployment rate, so we're looking at the hardest to serve, formerly incarcerated. In Utah, there's quite a number of people that have had drug offenses, alcohol offenses, but maybe they were 19 and caught underage drinking. Maybe they were at 21 and in a bad place, and now they're 40 and they can't, get a job because of that. That's what some of the things like bonding helps offset the cost of, but it also is a mindset change of where you're going to get your workforce and some of the things you need to do differently than what you've been doing in the past. We're not telling you to change everything that you do, but add apprenticeship as a component or as one strategy to the other things that you already do. If everything you were doing worked every day, you wouldn't be here today. If you didn't have a need for a workforce, we wouldn't be seeing you or having these conversations. And so it definitely is a mindset shift. On the mentoring thing, Matt, I just wanted to touch on, we've heard from some other businesses that this has really helped change their company culture. That mentors at first, you're asking someone to take them on and they're like, oh my gosh, I've been here for 20 years. Why do I want to tell someone what? It took me 20 years to learn. Why am I going to share all my secrets? Then I'm going to be out of a job, right? Well, what that has really done is just fostered the concept of lifelong learning and the pride of ownership of being able to say, I did this, let me impart this to you, and then you don't have to learn the hard way. And that actually is even a confidence builder for your mentors. And we've had some with Stadler Rail that as they were moving kids around, they didn't want to lose the kids, you know, because they wanted to keep being a mentor. And it's just changed some things. There's always unintended consequences for things, like things that are good and things that are bad. This was something that was great that employers didn't see. And then the frontline innovation, you know, having younger ones there, they see things differently than those that have been doing it for 20 years. And it's not necessarily a bad thing that we, you know, have some insights into that.
Thanks, Melissa. Sam?
My answer, Utah liability.
Yeah.
Okay, so in Utah, if the student is part of a training program in your high schools, I think it's post-secondary, but I don't do post-secondary, so I can't tell you that. But if they're in your high schools and they're registered for an apprenticeship class, 17, 18, they're in the high school, they're registered for the apprenticeship class, and they come to you. Our state agency, who is our insurer, State Risk Management, covers those students for negligence and omissions. So in other words, if the kid's negligent, they destroy your machine, there's a policy that covers that. If you are negligent, they won't cover it. But there is a over umbrella liability policy for you guys if you're taking a minor, if you're taking a high school student, because some of our high school students turn 18, that there is a liability policy that helps cover while the student. We can't do workers' comp, we can do it unpaid, but as soon as they become your employees, you have to do your workers' comp at this point. But we do have the liability policy. Occasionally, students will say to you, well, I'm 18 and I have all my credits, so let me leave high school and I'll just come and work full-time for you. If you do that, you lose the liability policy that covers the students. They have to be registered for the class.
And the bill that Marty's talking about is really, it's the golden ticket for us regarding that, the workers' comp, correct, Marty? And Melissa, my understanding is through the DOL, and this maybe isn't so much, we would have someone here from the DOL, but with an apprenticeship, there is workers' comp coverage for those that are under 18. Is that a true statement?
That I don't know exactly how that works. What I can do is connect you to Kyle Billingham, who'll be able to help us understand a worker's and an employer's responsibility and how that will work. So me being state, can't speak to the feds, but I can help direct you to the resources. So again, we have those up here.
At JD Machine, we've been operating underneath that understanding with under 18, that there is some workers' comp coverage. We know that's a big issue because this whole thing swings on that. Our understanding is that there is some coverage on that. We'll have to talk about that in detail. This is just a high-level kickoff, guys. There will be future either webinars or in-person meetings, things that are gonna get into the nitty-gritty of all this. A couple of questions I just can talk on real briefly. Does this mean we will each have our own registered apprenticeship program with the DOL, or will the participants be registered by the UMA? It will be through the UMA. If you want to do it yourself, Melissa can help you with that. But when we did Machine Utah, really where it bogged down was the employer's responsibility to do that registration and administration. It's tough. UMA is awesome, and they're going to sponsor this apprenticeship, but each company would be a participant in that and have latitude to define those skills and competencies that they want. I believe that's magic. And will this kind of expand? I think the idea is that CNC machining is kind of the pilot. We're working through this, and it can go into other trades. Hopefully those won't start up until all of us have plenty of people in our companies. All right, that's our time, guys. I want to be respectful of that. Okay, who do we contact to get started? Can we just send the email out with a slide deck, and those of you that are interested respond back? Okay, let's go that route. Any last minute burning questions that we need to tackle? Okay, thanks everyone.
Last thing, I don't